Shalom, Shalom, Israel. Today is another episode of Stick to the Script in the Classroom segment. My name is Brother BanaYah, and to my right is Brother Yaquatazah. And the name of tonight's lesson is The Depths of Mental Illness. The Depths of Mental Illness. So we're going to go into quote-unquote mental illness. That's a term used by our oppressors. So we're going to go into that and see what it entails, kind of dissect it as much as we can and get some understanding. And hopefully we can take that, what we receive, and get some healing according to the Most High. All right, the depths of mental illness. First, I want to deal with, I'm about to send you something so you can read for me, all right? I'm about to text it to you. Give me 1 second, Israel. I appreciate it. The depths of mental illness. Did you get that? Yeah. All right, I'll let you know when you need to read, where to go. But yeah, have that on hand for me. So the depths of mental illness, all right? Give me a definition of mental illness real quick. It's definitely a broad topic. It's definitely something that's not openly addressed as much as it needs to be. And it's definitely something that spans far beyond the truth, right? I was looking up some information on this topic, and the numbers were eye-opening as far as how many people that this affects. It says more than half of the population, not only in the United States, but in the world. And that kind of caught my eye and caught my attention. So we're going to dive into it. If you were to go into your toolbar on your computer and press Google, you will find out that there are a number of mental illnesses, more than you can probably name. We're going to go into what I thought were the most prominent, right? 7, 8, 9, 10 of the most prominent. Especially those that affect our people, Israelites, and we're going to deal from there, all right? So, number one by far will be depression, all right? I want you to go open up that tab and go to depression and give me that, it should be a definition. I don't think it'll be in order, but take your time. Depression would be the number one mental illness or mental disorder, all right? Go ahead.
Depression, a pervasive mood disorder. Depression can be diagnosed as a major depressive disorder or clinical depression. It can manifest as someone having a sad mood, feeling hopeless, guilty, irritable, or restless. If you have depression, You might have difficulty making decisions, sleeping, or being as productive as you usually are. It may be difficult to eat, and you could have thoughts of suicide or self-harm. You may also feel aches, pains, headaches, or digestive disturbance. Some people with depression experience it in episodes, whereas some people may experience it in a more ambient yet low-level way.
Right. So depression is something that affects millions of so-called Americans, millions, specifically Israelites, because that's who I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with my people, right? Depression to the point to where this is something that you don't even have to go to the doctor and be diagnosed with. It's something that you kind of know for yourself. You kind of know, look, I'm depressed. I'm not feeling good about A, B, and C. Or it's a number of things. It could be a combination of things. You know what I'm saying? This isn't going right, okay? This just happened. That's going over there. I'm just not feeling well about life not being good as it could be, all right? I'm depressed. I'm not as good as I was last year about this time, right? So, hearing that definition, there are a number of things. Some have a high level of depression. Some have a low level of depression. Nevertheless, this is a mental illness or disorder that our people go through on a common, everyday basis, all right? Up until the point to where, when my brother was reading, it could even lead up to suicide, depending on the level of depression that you're suffering, all right? So let's move on to the next one. Number 2 is bipolar. Bipolar. Go ahead.
Bipolar affective disorder. Previously known as manic depression, this disorder can cause you to experience extreme mania and depression. You may also have psychotic symptoms. The cause of bipolar affective disorder isn't known, but some people think that there is a genetic vulnerability to bipolar. If you are stressed, your bipolar symptoms might become more pronounced.
Right. So it says if you're stressed, your symptoms become more defined, all right? They're more prominent to the point to where, guess what? When you see or know someone that has this mental illness or disorder, bipolar is somebody that you may call crazy, somebody that you may say, hey, I need to stay away from that person. They're unpredictable, all right? And as we go through all these different definitions of these specific illnesses or disorders, we're going to find a common ground that they have a close relation, right? A lot of them tie into each other, and some of them even sound alike. As you go about your day, whether it be work, whether it be shopping at the grocery store, to the mall or what have you, maybe you're out and at the beach, you see people that we would deem they're not regular. It's something wrong with them. Do you see what I'm saying? And these are those people that, quote unquote, have these mental illnesses or disorders. So we've tackled depression, bipolar, and I'm sure, as we run through this list, you may have names of maybe even family members or people that you know that these certain mental illnesses or disorders, it may fit them, all right? And that's okay. Let's get number 3, schizophrenic or schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia, this is an incredibly severe disorder.
It's a what?
This is an incredibly severe disorder.
So this is one of the more severe, right? Go ahead.
People with schizophrenia experience reality in a way that others do not.
Right. They think different from the way, quote unquote, us normal people think. Go ahead.
Typically, the symptoms involve hallucinations, delusions, and behavioral changes that make it difficult to function.
Right. So this is the type of person that could, at one point, they can hold a conversation with you, right? The next moment, they flipping and spazzing out, and all of a sudden, you don't know what's going on. And then they can come back in from where they left off initially and complete the initial conversation that was started like nothing happened, right? Go ahead.
If you have schizophrenia, you can experience severe, rapid mood swings. In 1 minute, a schizophrenic may behave like a giggling child, and the next become very agitated.
Right. Was that it on that?
Just a moment.
Right. So they could become agitated. The next moment they could be happy and excited. And then all of a sudden they're, down spiraling again. So far, all these 3 different things that we've covered, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, they all involve these mood swings. Do you see what I'm saying? Right, so let's keep that in mind. Let's go to being labeled a psychotic or being psychosis, all right?
Psychosis. During psychosis, people lose contact with reality, either seeing or hearing things that no one else can see or hear.
Right, all right? They're hearing and seeing things that, quote unquote, us normal people don't hear or see, right? You're psychotic. This is where the word crazy comes from. That person is crazy, right? They're clinically psychotic, meaning they've gone, they've seen a doctor, and then from there, they've seen a psychiatrist, and on paper, they're labeled 5150. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of our people go into these mental institutions. It happened to my dear beloved auntie, rest in peace, Willa Cook, man, that's my aunt. She suffered from a quote-unquote anxiety disorder, all right? I don't want to get too far ahead because we're going to talk about that, but I'm going to bring it out now to where she had a lack of trust, even to the closest family members, even to her immediate sons and daughters, which are my cousins, right? Let me give you an example how crazy this was. She put a lock on the kitchen door, right, to be able to control the narrative in the kitchen, right? However, if somebody were able to get the key, go in the kitchen, and she found out that somebody went in the kitchen, right, guess what would happen? All the food that was cooked would have to go out. All the drinks that were opened. So if the milk was open, that had to be poured out. If the juice was open, that had to be poured out. You see what I'm saying? So she really went, through the American healthcare facility and got labeled 5150 and started to take these psych medicines and things of that nature. We're going to get to that, though. And you'll find out eventually it's always to the doom of our people that do that. But which one were we on again? Psychosis or psychotic, right? So run that by me again, that definition.
During psychosis, people lose contact with reality, either seeing or hearing things that no one else can see or hear.
Right. And these people aren't playing games, all right? They're serious about what they think they hear and what they think they see, all right? Let's go to the next one, paranoia.
I want to add something to this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one time, me and, one of the other brothers, we went out to Hollywood, and we took a trip to Hollywood. and pretty much we were just passing out literature, waking up the lost sheep. And we happened to, come across a guy, and he happened to have his shirt off, right? And then we was dealing with him. We gave him a literature. We, notified him that he was a Hebrew Israelite according to the Bible. And then he took the flyer. He said, all right, I'm going to check it out. And then right when before we was about to leave, he asked us, he was like, hey, do y'all hear something? I'm like, wait, what are you talking? I'm looking at the other bro. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, y'all don't hear voices? I'm hearing like voices and stuff like that. I'm like, shoot, I don't know what you're talking about, brother. Just like whatever it is, whatever you do at the end of this, just make sure you read that flyer and you repent. You see that? And then after that, then he left, and then he was walking with his shirt off, and then he walking to the street. So it's just crazy, like people actually go through this. And, it's sad to see that to happen to our people, Most High willing the brother repent, and the Most High have mercy on him, because this is not a joke, being, diagnosed with psychosis and any of these symptoms is not a joke,
Thanks for bringing that out, because that's the narrative that we see. The person on the sidewalk, they're homeless. A lot of the times they're, shirtless, cup in his hand, maybe asking for food, or, maybe walking up and down in the downtown area, maybe humming and, just kind of in their own world. You know what I'm saying? That's the poster boy picture for what we know as mental illness or mental disorder. But as we go through this lesson, you're going to find out that more than not, a lot of those people are your average everyday people as well. So we don't want to put a jacket on that certain narrative or that certain look, you know what I mean? Back to paranoia. It's crazy, man. So depression and paranoia, number 1 and number 5, these are very, very common, right? Go ahead.
Paranoia. People with paranoia constantly think or feel they are being threatened, even if there is no evidence suggesting danger. For example, you can have delusional thoughts that people or things are a danger to you. In addition, you might have exaggerated suspicions past the point of reason. Paranoia is not a mental health issue in itself, but can be a symptom of paranoid schizophrenia, delusional disorder, or paranoid personality disorder, among other disorders.
Right. So depression and paranoia are two of the most common that a person would be able to pretty much diagnose themselves. You wouldn't have to go see a psych doctor or go to a mental health institution. You kind of be like, you know what, look, yeah, I'm paranoid. You know what I'm saying? Brothers and sisters do that. Or you know what, yeah, I'm depressed. You know what I'm saying? So some are more prominent than others. Some are more serious than others. All the while, a lot of these are very, very common amongst the population. You know what I'm saying? Let's get the next one. It's called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Let's get that. This is also common amongst military vets and things of that nature, or people who have been through tragedies and things like that. Go ahead.
PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. After a traumatic event, you may develop this disorder.
So he said after a traumatic event, you may develop this disorder. Let me get the word traumatic or trauma. All right, so I want you to get that definition, then we'll come back. Read number 1. So we're not going to go traumatic, but we will use the root word, which is what?
Trauma.
Read definition number 1, please.
A deeply distressing or disturbing experience.
Right, one more time.
A deeply distressing or disturbing experience.
So whether it be physical, and if it is physical, obviously it's going to affect you mentally and emotionally as well, right? So it's a deeply distressing or disturbing experience, a tragic event, all right? So now let's go back. Read that again, PTSD.
After a traumatic event, you may develop this disorder. The response can be related to a car accident, assault, combat.
Right, a car accident, assault, all right, somebody putting hands on you, whether it be their fist or hitting you with a bat or, beating you. Go ahead. Combat, right. Military veterans, people that go to war, right? Go ahead.
Torture, or a natural disaster.
Torture or a natural disaster, all right? Being tortured, that's no joke, right? Or a natural disaster. Say something to the level of a Hurricane Katrina, where people have been misplaced and things of that nature, and life isn't going on as it was before this event, all right? So, PTSD, even as you move forward, people always revisit these tragedies and events. You see what I'm saying? Even to the point to where they could have terrible nightmares. You know what I'm saying, about these past events. Right. Or having flashbacks, right. Watching a certain movie, all right? Say you're a military vet, you got PTSD, all of a sudden you watched, give me a military movie or something like that, for example. Let's just say a Commando. I'll go way back in my kid days, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger. He had it was a Commando, a movie named Commando, right? And he was the main character, and these military guys just trying to blow him up and kill him, and all of a sudden, you're a military vet with PTSD, far removed from the initial tragic event, or combat, whether it be Air Force, Marines, what have you, right? Now, fast forward 7 to 10 years later, you watching this movie, and you get a flashback from when you were actually in the midst of that moment, right? When you were actually involved in war and you had to do what you had to do. Maybe you had to shoot somebody. Maybe you had to save a life. Maybe you saw a fellow member of your military group. Maybe he stepped on a bomb and blew up. All these things that could happen, right? So that's what we're dealing with. Okay, PTSD. Let's go on to the next. Anxiety disorders, all right? Now look, this one is deep because this encompasses a lot, right? Let me say this. Anxiety disorders also include panic attacks and different phobias. All right? I'm going to repeat that again. Anxiety disorders include panic attacks and phobias. So let's get anxiety disorder to start off.
This is actually a group of disorders.
A what?
This is actually a group of disorders.
So this is a group of disorders, not just one. Go ahead.
Included in the group are social anxiety disorder, phobias.
See, let's start with that. Social, what?
Social anxiety disorder.
Have you ever met someone that said, you know what? I like the event, man, but there's too many people in this room. I gotta go. I feel uncomfortable. All right? To the point to where, guess what? They say, I'm claustrophobic. All right? Claustrophobic is one of those phobias. All right? Being in a tight, cramped space. All right? Where there's too many bodies around. Being inside an elevator. Being inside of an airplane. Things of this nature. You know what I'm saying? As I go through this list, there are a few that, pertain to myself, right? as an Israelite who hasn't been depressed at one point, number one. Number four, when I was out there in the world, number five, the paranoia. I experienced that. I experienced the phobias and the anxiety disorders and things of that nature. So all of you who are online watching right now, whether you're keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments as an Israelite, or whether you're just tuning in and don't know if you're an Israelite, you have either experienced one or more of these at one time. All right? You better believe that, okay? So go back to anxiety disorders.
This is actually a group of disorders. Included in the group are social anxiety disorder, phobias about certain things, generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and agoraphobia.
Right. So do me a favor. Leave that open. Can you give me the definition of panic attack? Okay, because a panic attack is something that it happens abruptly. It happens out of nowhere. Everything was just fine 2 to 3 minutes ago, right? And then all of a sudden, somebody needs to be removed and they need to be comforted by somebody else that they are, well attached to, somebody that they trust, right? To the point to where they need to be kind of built back up, exhorted, and uplifted. You know what I mean? To be brave enough to go back into the setting. If they're not brave enough to do that, then guess what? They got to leave. All right? So do you have that definition for me?
Panic attack, sudden episode of intense fear.
Say it again.
Sudden episode of intense fear.
A sudden episode of intense fear. All right? That's all you got, right? That's good enough for me, but that's good enough. A sudden episode of intense fear. Where? Out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? And because this is what we're going to do. I'm leading up to something. We're building right now. Not only are we building, we're giving away informative information to our people, right? We're going to rename the term mental illness or disorder, right? Because these things, they have a root according to the Bible. So yeah, the anxiety disorders, they, have a subdivision, which are the panic attacks and the phobias, right? So one more time for the panic attacks.
Sudden episode of intense fear.
All right, so now let's deal with the phobias. A phobia is a certain fear of a certain kind of thing. Have you ever heard of the movie Arachnophobia? Okay, the movie Arachnophobia dealt with, I believe, an invasion of spiders. Right? So what was their phobia? Their phobia was a fear of spiders. All right? And you'll see, or you'll learn, if you don't already know, certain people you know and that you've encountered have a fear of spiders or a fear of certain things that may be nothing to you, right? But that particular phobia, it's disturbing to them, right? It causes fear. So let me get the definition of phobia. Phobia.
A phobia is an overwhelming and debilitating fear of an object, place, situation, feeling, or animal.
Right. See? So it says an object, a place, an animal, but it came back to that word, that four-letter word, fear. You see what I'm saying? So a fear of spiders, a fear of being closed in, claustrophobic, a fear of, and then people who go to, jail systems like the LA County Jail or, prison. It's they experience that claustrophobia, right? Because things are, cells are only a certain, 10 by 10 or what have you. You know what I'm saying? It's a limited amount of space, right? You're not able to express that freedom and able to kind of do what you want to do, have the space that you need to have, that personal space that you have, or that we have as people who are free in the free world on the streets, right? So just building up on these different mental illnesses or disorders, all right? I'm going to run through them again. So number 1 was depression. Number 2 was being bipolar. Number 3 was being schizophrenic. Number 4 was psychotic or psychosis, all right? Quote unquote crazy. Number 5 will be paranoia. Number 6 would be PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And number 7 would be the anxiety disorders and everything attached to that, which are the panic attacks and the phobias as well, all right? So let's understand, all of these are serious, serious issues, right? Some of them are people have been diagnosed with on a clinical level, meaning you went to the hospital, you saw a doctor, okay? You saw a psych doctor, and then some of our people even go to a psych ward to where they're a patient, all right? Not a regular patient in a hospital, right? But they're in their beds tied up maybe in a straitjacket, or they're maybe handcuffed to their beds, right? Because they have the ability to hurt themselves or hurt others, right? Nurses and doctors and things of that nature, depending on how severe these mental illnesses or disorders are, right? So I just want to throw this out there. All these things could possibly lead to suicide for some. So what I'm doing now with this lesson is reaching out to my people and those who are on that lower level, right? There's hope for you according to the scriptures, right? You don't have to feel you need to be in an institution and things of that nature, but let's move on, all right? So the question now would be, what causes mental illnesses or disorders, all right? I wanted to keep everything separated. Now, what causes these things? Let's see. So now you're going to read from here, right? No, don't worry about that. We're done with that. Now we're going to deal with my lesson right here. What's the first one?
Stress.
What?
Stress.
See? So let me get the definition of stress. Now we're going to run through a list of things that cause all of these mental illnesses or disorders.
Stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension.
Right. So you're overwhelmed. Life has become too much for you. You don't think you can do it. You're stressed out. Okay? So we're going to keep it simple so we can keep rolling, all right? Stress.
Another thing with that too. Another thing about like stress, like when you happen to feel like because look, your shoulders should be down. You see what I'm saying? Like relax. You see that? So when you happen to be in a situation when your shoulders up like this, or when you're like your back is hunched up like that, that's a sign like you're stressing. You know, you need to, cause that's tension right there.
Very good.
I mean, you need
Bring
to relax your shoulder. You know.
Oh, praises. Let's back that up in the spirit. All right. What's the name of this definition right here, King? Right there.
Pressure
No.
or I'm sorry.
We're just talking about it.
Stress.
All right. Read number 2.
A state of mental or emotional strain or tension.
Or what?
Or tension.
That's what he just brought up. Read.
Resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances.
See? So that's where we're at. All right? So let's move on to the next one. So those who just tuned in, we're dealing with the causes of mental illnesses or disorders. Stress was number one. What's the next one?
Rejection.
Read it.
Rejection.
See? Rejection. Now, as he's getting the definition, rejection is something that doesn't sit well just with us innately, male or female, especially relationship-wise, right? Being rejected by your peers, being rejected by your family. It's not a good thing on the psyche, right? So let me get that definition.
The dismissing or refusing of a proposal idea.
See, right, so you got rejected, right? Will you marry me? You know what, you're a great guy, but, no thank you. You see what I'm saying? You try to become a part of a group because everybody wants to be a part of something, right? We're natural builders, we're natural, I would like to believe we're natural team players deep down inside, right? And when you get that rejection from your peers, even on a friendship level, it does something to you. You know what I'm saying? Right? And it will lead to the next one, which is what?
Loneliness. There we go.
Man, loneliness. All right? So as we read down the causes of mental illnesses or disorders, the further we get down this list, it's eye-opening as far as where you can find yourself. Go ahead.
Feeling sad and unhappy about being socially isolated.
See? So from rejection, you get loneliness, and then loneliness said what again?
Feeling sad or unhappy about being socially isolated.
See, so you were socially isolated. Now you're lonely because you were rejected. You see what I'm saying? You don't have any peers. You don't have anyone to build with. Isolation and loneliness, that goes into you lose your morale. You see what I'm saying? And that's what happens in the jail system. That's a part of them mentally breaking you down. Not only the fact that you're isolated and you're behind bars, but you don't have any social, you see what I'm saying? There's no touch. There's no fruitful conversation. Again, it just destroys the hope that lies within. You know what I mean? So, loneliness. What's the next one?
Low self-esteem.
Low self-esteem. So if you get lonely for too much of a length of a time, guess what? Now your self-esteem is low. All right, that's not good. Go ahead.
Low self-esteem is when someone lacks confidence about who they are and what they can do.
So you lack confidence about who you are and what you can do. Now, guess what? It's sort of, it has you in a place to where you're unproductive. You're not as confident. You're not getting things accomplished. That's not a good space. So all these things can cause mental illnesses or disorder. Let's move on. Alcoholism, right? That's the next one. Alcoholism, that's the next one. I'll speak on it a little bit while, he's getting that definition. But, dealing with the abuse of alcohol. It puts you in a place to where you're dependent on it, right? Now, instead of social happiness, you have to have your happiness coming from having a drink or that hard liquor that puts you in a place of an illusion, so to speak, right? You're happy when you got it. When you don't have it, now it's all downhill. You know what I'm saying? Emotionally, mentally, and so on and so forth. So Go ahead.
A chronic disease, well, this is alcohol use disorder.
Yeah. See, and that's even a disorder as well. Go ahead.
A chronic disease characterized by uncontrolled drinking and preoccupation with alcohol.
See, uncontrolled drinking, at this point, you've lost control, right? You're not able to rule over your own spirit, okay? When something is chronic, that means it's to the point to where you're a victim at that point, right?
I see alcoholism right here. It says, is the inability to control drinking due to both a physical and emotional dependence on alcohol.
See? So these are things that cause mental illnesses or disorders. Drug addiction as well. We don't have to look that one up. That's closely related. Obviously, those who have experienced drug addiction, like myself in the past, you know exactly the monster that we're dealing with, and it could put you in the same place as alcoholism, if not even deeper than that, all right? So here's another one. We don't need a definition, but read that right there.
Mothers exposing infants to toxic chemicals or viruses while pregnant.
So, putting the right things in your body when women are pregnant, you're bringing another life or lives into the world. You can't be abusing drugs, alcohol, and things of that nature. Taking all kinds of dopes, and, it's just, it's not good, because now babies could come out, emotionally messed up. They could even have not only emotional, but they could have different syndromes and physical ailments as well, if they've been abused enough over the 9 to 10 month period. All right. So what's the next one? Go ahead.
Poverty.
What?
Poverty.
What are the Israelites in?
Poverty.
See, and what else?
Along with a little or no social and economical support.
So now we're back to the social support and the economical support, right? So poverty. Get poverty for me real quick.
Poverty.
Right. So us as Israelites, you're familiar with the curses. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 68. Here on slave ships in Babylon, sold to our enemies, so on and so forth, right? And we're just now coming alive in the spirit over the last, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, according to prophecy, right? And we're learning how to not let poverty and social and the lack of social and economical support, we no longer have to let that dominate us and overwhelm us. Now we know how to navigate through this, right? By way of the scriptures and reversing the curses, because we do keep the commandments. Did you have something for me? Go ahead and get poverty.
The state of one who lacks a usual or socially acceptable amount of money or material possession.
Right. So that could play on your psyche over time, right? You kind of get used to it over the years, right? Coming up, top ramen noodles, mayonnaise sandwiches with cheese on them. I mean, we can go on and on. Campbell's chicken noodle soup. And that's the whole shebang for weeks at a time. You know what I mean? At best, chicken and spaghetti. But that 2 weeks in a row, that could even take a toll on you. You know what I mean? but poverty, man. You know, going to school on a field trip. You take a field trip. You go to a museum. You in a nice middle class neighborhood, and you say, "Hey, what's this? Why do we live so far away from here? Look at this neighborhood, Mama. That's a big house." You know, so these are the things that we deal with. All right. What's the next one?
Environment.
That's very, very important. That's attached to poverty. Look at our environment when we come outside. Things don't look good. You know what I mean? Graffiti, um, you know, trash in the streets. You know, our people suffering from all of these different mental disorders, drugs, alcohol, gang banging. You see what I'm saying? That environment is a stressful environment, and it puts you at a disadvantage when you don't know what's going on. You're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, and you have to adapt, but you haven't come to be able to ask those questions yet because you're not 15, 16, 17, 18. When it finally hits you, you're able to revisit everything and be like, you know, Mama this, you know, Uncle Larry this. You know, I got questions about, you know, where we used to live here and so on and so forth, right? Now things can be explained at that age and stage. But when you're going through it as a youngster under 10 years old, you don't understand. But we learn to adjust, right? All right. What's the next one?
Trauma.
Say it again.
Trauma.
This one is important. We've already had this definition, but we're going to read it again.
A deeply distressing or disturbing experience.
And that's the life of an Israelite in captivity, right? So I'm going to go back. Your surroundings, all right? And then what's the next one?
Slavery.
Hey, if that's not one of the most traumatic experiences for us as an Israelite, slavery, okay? The Most High God's words being put in effect according to prophecy. And here we are living it. All right. What's the next one? All right. It's going to get more, you know, children stay away right now. Go ahead.
Rape/child molestation.
That's a serious thing that has gone on in the Israelite community for years, and it still continues to do so. All right? I'm not going to touch on that deep. It is what it is. It speaks for itself. And we're going to leave that as it is, but it's a true thing, right? So, again, these are things that cause mental illness or disorder to the point to where when he just said rape and child molestation, that's something that you can reach 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old and never can shake the ramifications of events that have happened as a child, you know, on this level, rape and child molestation. It's something that haunts most until the day that they die, okay? Let's get the next one.
Mental, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse.
So all these abuses, whether it's a husband abusing his wife, you know, physically, or the words that you spew out and destroy her, you know what I'm saying? Mental, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse. It's all bad. You know what I'm saying? These are also things that could bring that lifelong trauma and cause mental illnesses or disorders, and can even cause some to, you know, desire not to be here anymore. So we're done with number 2, which was a list of things that cause mental illnesses or disorders, right? So we need to recognize and realize that some of these mental illnesses or disorders can cause one to have behavioral issues and or trust issues for the rest of their lives. Okay? So let's just put that out there. Okay? And then we're going to come to the realization that most of these mental illnesses or disorders are demons or spirits. I didn't say all of them, but I did say most of them, right? A lot of the phobias, a lot of the anxiety disorders, the panic attacks. Remember that sudden fear out of nowhere, all right? So let's get a scripture. Let's get a scripture. Matthew 17 to 14. We're going to deal with it, saints. We're going to deal with it and we're going to get this healing, right? Okay, Matthew 17. We're going to read 14 to 21. And the thing about this is, if you have a concordance or a Bible, when you're dealing with the certain chapters, it allows you to know what the chapter is about. Or certain chapters have more than one topic. So as you read down these chapters, it'll let you know from verse to verse, hey, this verse to this verse is about this. So we're reading about Yahushua healing a boy with a demon, right? A demon. But guess what we can safely assume? That this same demon could be a mental illness or a mental disorder. Let's get a description. Let's see. Go ahead. 14.
Matthew chapter 17, verse 14.
Read.
And when they were come to the multitude, there came to him a certain man, kneeling down to him and saying.
Okay, so when they came to the multitude, meaning Yahushua and his disciples came to the people, there came to him a certain man. So a man came to Yahushua and the disciples, and he was kneeling down. Read.
And saying,
and he said,
Lord, have mercy on my son,
uh-huh,
for he is a lunatic and sore vexed.
So Lord, have mercy on my son because he's a lunatic. Or guess what? He's crazy. All right? He's doing things that are not normal. Okay, go ahead.
For oft times he falleth into the fire and oft into the water.
Sometimes he falls into the fire, and at other times he falls into the water. Read.
And I brought him to thy disciples, and they could not cure him.
Before I brought him to your disciples, but they couldn't do anything for him, Christ. They couldn't do anything, Yahushua. Read.
Then Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him hither to me. So
Yahushua, he expected his disciples and his students to get what he was teaching and to get it fast. Why? Because Yahushua had a limited time to be here. He knew he would be crucified down the line, right? Sooner than his disciples thought. So he got kind of upset when he heard what the Father was saying, all right? And he said, "O faithless and perverse generation," all right? So he's dealing with his disciples at that point, meaning you guys couldn't get it done. You're followers of me, but you couldn't get it done, right? You couldn't get him the cure. You couldn't bring the healing, all right? And then he said, you know what? Just bring him to me. Verse 18, read.
And Jesus rebuked the devil.
Okay, let's stop right there. And Yahushua did what?
Rebuked the devil.
Okay. So when you're dealing with the word devil in the Strong's G 1140, right? It says a demonic being or a deity. What is another word for that start with an S? A spirit. He's dealing with a spirit that this young child has, right? So read 18 from the top again.
And Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him.
So that spirit departed out of the young boy after Yahushua rebuked him. Read.
And the child was cured from that very hour.
And the child was cured from that very hour. It was a done deal. That's what Yahushua expected his disciples to do. All right? Read on.
Then came the disciples to Jesus apart and said, why could not we cast them out?
So look, they came and asked a question. When the father and the son that was healed left the scene, the multitude was gone, they said, Yahushua, why couldn't we do it? Right? Why couldn't we cast them out? Let's see what Yahushua said. Verse 20.
And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief.
Right, you didn't believe. Read.
For verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you.
Right. So, in a nutshell, you didn't have enough faith. All right. You're not supposed to be following me, a follower of Yahushua, and not have enough faith. You guys should be able to get this done. I'm not going to be here one day. All right? And you guys are going to have to do what? Greater works than these. You see what I'm saying? All right? But here's the most important thing, verse 21. See, because right now we're looking at, we've talked about a lot of mental illnesses or disorders, right? But what we're looking at now is a worst case scenario. This is a worst case scenario, right? Somebody falling on the floor, foaming at the mouth, falling in the water, falling in the fire, right? You see what I'm saying? That's a worst case scenario. If we see somebody like that, we're going to be like, whoa, stay away from that brother. Yeah. That brother, everybody back up, right? Yeah. Right? All right, read 21.
Howbeit,
nevertheless, read.
This kind goeth not out, but by prayer and fasting.
And that's how you're going to get out, all right? Certain spirits and certain demons will not leave unless they're exorcised out by prayer and what?
And fasting.
And fasting. You see what I'm saying? You don't need to fill up your bathroom with all kinds of psychotic medicines. You see what I'm saying? The Most High said, trust me. So let's go back, all right? Let's get back to the lesson. So that was a worst case scenario. So let me bring this out, right? Very, very important. Everyone who suffers from a mental illness or disorder, right, they do not act the same or look the same. I'm going to repeat that again. Everybody who suffers from mental illnesses or disorders do not act the same or look the same, all right? Most are everyday working folk like you and I that greet you with a big smile when they meet you, all right? So we're dealing with regular people, all right? Some are parents, some are family members, some are strangers, some are old, some are young, some are rich and some are poor, some are homeless, some are teachers, some are students, some are educated, some are even geniuses, right? Some are articulate, and you would never know they are victims of a mental illness or disorder unless they told you. So keep that in mind, all right? Now let's deal with some fear precepts. Let's get back to the scriptures, 2 Timothy 1:7, all right? Because we saw with a lot of these mental illnesses, disorders, panic attacks, and phobias, that word fear was common to the point to where it was sudden, right? So let's get 2 Timothy 1:7. Go. So let's get that.
2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7.
This is what we need to know first and foremost. Read.
For God hath not given us the spirit of fear.
So let that sink in. Read it again.
For God hath not given us the spirit of fear.
See, God has not given you the spirit of fear, all right? Okay? So we're not going to any longer entertain these illnesses and these disorders and these phobias and these panic attacks, right? Because we're not fearful of them anymore. Okay, read.
But of power.
But of what?
But of power.
Because you have power over demons, devils, and spirits. Read.
Of love. And of a sound mind.
And the fact that you keep God's commandments as an Israelite, and because you have a sound mind, right? You have a sound mind. You're stable. Okay? We're not wavering anymore. We're stable. All right? So let's get the next one. Wisdom of Solomon 12. Wisdom of Solomon 16. Excuse me one more time. Wisdom of Solomon 17 and 12. My apologies. Wisdom of Solomon. Um, 17 and 12. Go ahead.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 17, verse 12. For fear is nothing else but a betraying of the succors which reason offereth.
So fear, in a nutshell, is nothing but you betraying yourself to the point to where you're doing yourself a disservice, because the scriptures say, give me Proverbs 23 and 7 real quick. The scriptures say that you are what you say you are. Okay? As a man thinketh, so is he. So if you say you're scared, or if you say that I'm in fear, then guess what? You giving these illnesses and disorders and these phobias permission to inhabit you and to overwhelm and torment you, right? You're giving them permission to haunt and taunt you in your dreams, all right? You've given them permission to inhabit you. Go ahead.
Proverbs chapter 23, verse 7. For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he.
So whatever you think in your mind, so it shall be. So is he. So is she. All right? So now, back one more time. Wisdom of Solomon 17 and 12.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 17, verse 12. For fear is nothing else but a betraying of the succors which reason offereth.
So don't betray yourself into thinking that you have to accept these things and that they're permanent and that's the end all be all. All right? Something can be done about it. We just read, right? With much prayer and much fasting. Okay? Now let's go back. Let's get another one. Because we got to deal with this fear, man. 1 John 4 and 18. And we need to deal with the fear aspect of this, mental illness and disorder, and this whole little narrative. Why? Because it tells us that the fearful will not get the kingdom, right? It says the fearful and the unbelieving in the scriptures will not inherit the kingdom. So we have to face our fears, right? 1 John chapter 4 and 18. 1 John chapter 4 and 18. Read.
18 or 19?
18.
1 John chapter 4, verse 18. There is no fear in love.
Read it again.
There is no fear in love.
So if you keep God's law, statutes, commandments, testimonies, ordinances as an Israelite, You can't, look, you can't mix water and oil, and you can't mix fear and love. All right? You can't walk with the Most High in love and Satan in fear. It's not going to work, right? So read that again.
There is no fear in love,
Uh-huh.
but perfect love casteth out fear.
But perfection of the law casteth out fear. Read on.
Because fear hath torment, he that feareth is not made perfect in love.
See, so fear has torment, right? So when you're fearful, again, let's revisit what I said a few minutes ago about you're giving these spirits and these demons, a.k.a. these illnesses or disorders, permission to inhabit you, haunt and taunt you, right? All right? And it says at the end of this verse, he that feareth is not made perfect in love, right? So it's safe to say that you're not walking in righteousness if you let fear overwhelm you, if you let these things overwhelm you, right? Let's get another one. Psalms 34:4. We're dealing with this fear, the fear of these mental illnesses and phobias. Because that's what they cause. They cause our people to be fearful. They hypnotize our people. And they disable our people to the point to where they can't function and get things accomplished and done and be the best that they could be. Go ahead.
Psalms 34, verse 4, I sought the Lord, and he heard me
Right.
and delivered me from all my fears.
So when he said, I sought the Lord. That's what David said. I seek the Most High, right? And he heard me. Why? Because he hears the prayers of those who keeps the commandments, right? And then he said, and delivered me from all my fears, right? So in this case, David was speaking about his enemies, but we're talking about everything from your enemies to all the fears that you face, right? There's a saying in the world that we need to face our what? We must face our fears. We must face these mental illnesses and disorders, right? And overcome them, okay? So now, here's the thing. We're about to deal with the deception of the American healthcare industry. A lot of our people run for help, okay? Let's use wisdom. In certain cases, if you bust your head wide open and you're leaking, go to the hospital. You know what I'm saying? And get some surgery and get back together. But there are certain things that you don't need to go to the hospital for, right? You can be your own doctor, interceding for yourself. You see what I'm saying? All right? You can be the middleman and let the Most High and Yahweh and the Holy Spirit do it. And again, you orchestrating your own healing, so to speak. You feel me? So remember that, okay? Unless you're dealing with a severe situation of mental illness, disorder, to the point where you're uncontrollable. You have the ability to hurt yourself and others, take lives and things of that nature. Other than that, let's get it done with this, all right? Let's let the Heavenly Father do it. Okay, so again, the deception of the American healthcare industry. All right, so here's a question. How are mental illnesses or disorders diagnosed? I'm not answering this question. This is something that I pulled up on the internet. This is according to Esau, this answer right here. Right? So go ahead and read that. You can read the question and then do it again.
How are mental disorders diagnosed? The steps to getting a diagnosis include a medical history.
So this is what they want you to do. They want you to come in Hey, Mr. So-and-so. Hey, Miss So-and-so. What's your medical history, Reed?
A physical exam and possibly lab test.
Right. So they want to do blood work. They want to weigh you. All right, go ahead.
If your provider thinks that other medical conditions could be causing your symptoms.
Right. So your initial doctor may want to refer you to a psych doctor, all right, which is going to the next step, right? Go ahead.
A psychological evaluation, you will answer questions about your thinking, feelings, and behaviors.
See, so now they want to do a psych evaluation. So now you're going from a regular hospital to a mental institution. You see what I'm saying? So this is Esau and how he thinks, right? When you ask a question and say, how are mental disorders diagnosed, right? This is what gets you to that, to those pills and to these psych medicines that have you even crazier than you were from the beginning, all right? When you trust in oppression, right? Let's get another question. Go ahead. This question would be, what are the treatments for mental illnesses or disorders, right? What are the treatments for mental illnesses or disorders? So this is what Esau says again. After you go through and I physically diagnose you, I give you a psychosis diagnosis. All right, I have you write on the paper how you're feeling and, you know, do you want to harm yourself and all of this. Here's the next step. Go ahead.
What are the treatments for mental disorders?
Mm-hmm.
Treatment depends on which mental disorder you have and how serious it is.
Mm-hmm.
You and your provider will work on a treatment plan just for you. It usually involves some type of therapy. You may also take medicines. Some people also need social support and education on managing their condition.
Right. So now all of a sudden, on top of these psych medicines that they give you, that's gonna make you crazier. Now all of a sudden you need some living assistance and somebody. Now you need a living coach. All of a sudden, according to Esau, and somebody to, you know, narrate and help you navigate through your daily fears. All right. This is crazy, man. Is that it? Go ahead.
In some cases, you may need more intensive treatment. You may need to go to a psychiatric hospital.
See, so you may need to go to one of our hospitals and get tied down on a bed, right? We put you in a straitjacket or handcuff you to the bed. Go ahead.
This could be because your mental illness is severe, or it could be because you are at risk of hurting yourself or someone else. In the hospital, you will get counseling, group discussions, and activities with mental health professionals and other patients.
See, so all of this, you know, when I read in this book, it tells me that the counsel of the Lord shall stand, right? This is my counsel, all right? So all of a sudden, you're amongst a group of so-called professional Edomites that have all the answers for you, right? While they're running up your, what is it called? Your insurance bill, all right? So you're getting hit financially and you still don't have the answers after all of this, right? Trusting in your oppression. All right? It's crazy. We know that we're not going to do this, but I'm just giving my people some insight and some information on this is how they do it in the world. We're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it according to the words of the Heavenly Father, right? Okay. Go ahead and read number 6 for me, King.
How much money did the American healthcare industry make in 2021?
So before he answers this, guess what? This industry makes a lot of money off the children of Israel, mostly because there's a scripture that says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, right? And this is why. So read that again.
How much money did the American healthcare industry make in 2021?
So if ignorance is bliss, and our people choose to remain in ignorance, right, concerning these mental illnesses, disorders, AKA demons and spirits in some cases, right? Go ahead and read.
In 2021, Americans spent $4.1 trillion for healthcare in the United States.
How much?
$4.1 trillion.
So he didn't say 4.1 million. And he did not say 4.1 billion. He said $4.1 trillion, all right, to out-of-pocket expenses or that hits your insurance provider, you see? Or your Medicaid or your Medicare or a combination of all of them. At the end of the day, you still going to get that bill. You see what I'm saying? And so because of our lack of knowledge and understanding how our enemy works and not understanding how our God, our power works, this is what happened. We make the enemy rich, and then you're closer to dying anyway. You see what I'm saying? All right. Sirach 12. And 10.
Sirach chapter 12, verse 10. Never trust thine enemy.
One more time.
Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness.
So iron will inevitably rust regardless of the nature of the environment you store it in. Cold, hot, it doesn't matter. It's going to rust regardless, right? Same thing with your enemy. They're going to be wicked. Don't trust him. Don't trust the American healthcare industry, right? For your healing, trust the Most High. All right, so finish reading right there. You can get this reference from everything I just read right here. Go ahead.
CMS.gov.
All right, and what does CMS mean?
Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Right. So now, let's get this scriptural healing, Psalms 107 and 20. Our people need this lesson because there are a lot of people that are suffering silently. And the sad thing about it is if a lot of our people had the monetary ability, they would go to Esau and actually get counseling. They would go and actually get therapy and all that. Mm-hmm. I've heard it in the truth. Like, what? Like, hold on. Like, don't you know that the Most High is the doctor? Don't you know that you can come to the men of the Lord and allow them on behalf of the Most High? You see what I'm saying? Bring that accelerated healing, by faith, of course. You know what I'm saying? Without any unbelief in the midst of both parties. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's crazy. Psalms 107 and 20, though.
Psalms chapter 107, verse 20. He sent his word.
So he sent his word to us for a reason. Read.
And healed them.
And then he healed us with his word, right? This is the healing, all right? There's no amount of pharmaceutical drugs that could be diagnosed to you that's going to heal your spirit, all right? Read.
And delivered them from their destruction.
Right, and he's delivering us from our destructions. But he sent this word and healed them, right? That applies to us. Let's get the next one. Wisdom of Solomon 16 and 12.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16, verse 12. For it was neither herb.
So it wasn't the herbs, because in Genesis, the Most High tells us he has given us herbs for food and healing, right? But you need to know who the ultimate healer is, right? Because this isn't a contradiction. Go ahead and read it again.
For it was neither herb.
But it wasn't the herbs alone, right?
Nor mollifying plaster.
Or the boiling of many herbs and concoctions that you did on your own. Read.
That restored them to health, but thy word.
But what?
But thy word.
So it wasn't that alone that restored you to the health. It was the word of the Most High and you leaving off from your sins. Read.
O Lord, which healeth all things.
O Yahweh, which healeth all things, right? So the Most High is going to heal these illnesses and these disorders by way of prayer and fasting and believing, okay? Sirach 30 and 15. I hope somebody getting edified tonight. Go ahead.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 30, verse 15.
Uh-huh.
Health and good state of body are above all gold.
So mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, right, are a good, and look, it says health and good estate of the body. It mentioned the body, right? But the first health is spiritual health, mental health, and emotional health. So that, along with good estate of the body, right, take care of our temples, are above what?
All gold.
It's above gold, right? There's no price that you could put on good spiritual, mental, emotional health and a sound body. Read.
And a strong body above infinite wealth.
And a strong body above infinite wealth. All right? You can be the richest man or woman in the world, but if you're not sound in your mind, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and your body is weak, right? You're sick, you're diseased, you're done, right? Sirach 1 and 18.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 1, verse 18.
Uh-huh.
The fear of the Lord is a crown of wisdom.
The fear of the Lord is a crown of wisdom, right? How do you get wisdom? You fear the Lord. How do you fear the Lord? You keep his commandments. Read.
Making peace and perfect health to flourish.
Making peace and perfect health to flourish. This is by way of the Most High, after you keep his commandments. Read.
Both which are the gifts of God.
Both of which are the gifts of God, all right? To have a sound mind and a sound body is a gift from the Father. Read.
And it enlargeth their rejoicing that love him.
And those that keep these commandments, it will make us abound and glorify him and show his majesty even the more, all right? That was the last precept. Do you want to say anything to your people before we get out of here?
Please make sure you guys, meditate on this lesson and share this with your family and your friends and to those that's, really going through it, because it's not a joke, You got people out there that's really going through it and they don't have a solution. They're constantly dependent on medication, constantly dependent on their physicians. But we have the solution, which is right here. The law, statutes, and commandments, the Bible. That's the solution that will solve all of that. You see that? So Most High willing, you guys will, share this class to those that way, they could get this word,
God, and I want to say one last thing. Stay away from the psych meds, all right? And these doctors is going to make you worse off than before, right? Stay away from the pharmaceutical drugs that are designed to make you even more crazy. Understand that the American healthcare industry is a business that don't give a damn about our people, right? And don't become a victim of a malpractice, period, all right? Don't be destroyed for lack of knowledge. All right, we're going to sign out, Israel. We love you. Shalom.
Shalom.